Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a look at David Bohm's book Wholeness and the Implicate Order from 1980. I had mentioned this book a couple of times in the past, so I thought we might as well review it together. David Bohm was a prominent theoretical physicist known for challenging scientific conventions. His interest and influence transcended physics. There is, for instance, a well-documented dialogue he had with the philosopher and spiritual figure Jiddu Krishnamurti, which I covered in a separate playlist if you're interested. At the core of his work was the fundamental concept that beyond the visible and tangible world exists a deeper interconnected order of complete unity. David Bohm was born in Pennsylvania on December 20th, 1917. He attended Pennsylvania State University to study physics and later pursued his PhD at the University of California, Berkeley, under the supervision of Robert Oppenheimer. During his time at Berkeley, Bohm engaged in political activities and was identified as a communist by the FBI under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover. As a result, he was unable to obtain the necessary authorization to collaborate with Oppenheimer on the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos, where the first atomic bomb was developed during World War II. During his doctoral studies at Berkeley, he uncovered the scattering calculations for proton and deuteron collisions, which were utilized by the Manhattan Project team and promptly classified. Consequently, Bohm was prohibited from accessing his own work and was not permitted to write or defend his thesis. Oppenheimer had to confirm to the university faculty that Bohm had indeed completed his research successfully for him to be able to get his Doctor of Philosophy degree in physics. In 1947, Bohm became an assistant professor at Princeton University, where he met Albert Einstein. Einstein found Bohm to be a like-minded colleague with whom he could have fascinating conversations about the nature of the universe, and at the time, Bohm extended his research to the study of electrons in metals. Bohm's innovative work in this area established his reputation as a theoretical physicist. In 1951, Bohm wrote a classic textbook entitled Quantum Theory, in which he presented a clear account of the orthodox Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics. The Copenhagen interpretation was formulated mainly by Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg in the 1920s and is still highly influential. Even before the textbook was published, Bohm began to have doubts about the assumptions underlying the conventional approach. Bohm wasn't satisfied with the Copenhagen interpretation because he felt that it did not provide a complete and satisfying explanation of physical reality. Bohm developed an alternative interpretation known as Bohmian mechanics, also known as the Broglie-Bohm theory or pilot wave theory. The concept of wholeness lies at the heart of Bohm's philosophy. Bohm was convinced that everything is a part of an undivided whole, in contrast to conventional viewpoints that see the world as made up of discrete entities. A fundamental idea in David Bohm's understanding of quantum mechanics and his philosophy in general is the Holo movement. He refers to this as the universal flux, which unites the holistic concept of undivided wholeness with the notion that everything is in a state of becoming or a process. In Bohm's view, physical, localizable and perceivable objects, such as particles or human beings, only have a relative existence. They exist relative to this underlying, undivided movement and in a way always remain a part of it. As Bohm understands everything to ultimately be part of an underlying whole or movement, he differentiates between what he calls the implicate and the explicate order. What we see in the universe is the explicate order, and this explicate order emerges from a deeper, more interconnected foundation, the implicate order. In this view, the tangible reality of our everyday lives is a kind of projection or unfolding from this deeper implicate order. In the implicate order, everything is enfolded into everything else, and in theory, any individual element could reveal information about every other element in the universe. This, of course, reminds us of the concept of holography that we touched upon when we discussed Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe. Bohm believes that the implicate order has to be extended into a multidimensional reality. In other words, the Holo movement endlessly enfolds and unfolds into infinite dimensionality. Within this milieu, there are independent subtotalities, such as physical elements and human entities, with relative autonomy. The layers of the implicate order can go deeper and deeper to the ultimately unknown. It is this unknown and undescribable totality that Bohm calls the Holo movement. The Holo movement is the foundational ground of all matter. One of the most puzzling aspects of quantum mechanics is this idea that the act of measurement affects the state of a particle. This led to interpretations suggesting that the world at a quantum level is fundamentally probabilistic and that we can only predict the probability of finding a particle in a certain state. David Bohm proposed a different interpretation. He suggested that particles, like electrons, do have specific positions and velocities at all times, guided by a pilot wave that dictates their trajectory. This pilot wave is a mathematical representation of the quantum field, and it influences the particle in a deterministic way, meaning that the future state of the particle is fully determined by its initial conditions and the pilot wave not by chance. We can use a simple example to make this clear. Imagine a leaf floating down a river. In classical physics, you can predict exactly where the leaf will go by knowing the current and the initial position of the leaf. In the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics, the leaf could be in many parts of the river at once until you look at it, and only then does it decide its position. Bohm's theory, on the other hand, says that the leaf is always at one specific location on its journey down the river, and that it's being guided by a wave that's invisible to us. The leaf's path can still appear random or probabilistic to us, even though it's actually deterministic. Bohm's interpretation is significant because it offers a way to explain classical mechanics as a limiting case of quantum mechanics. In other words, instead of looking at a leaf mechanistically as a part and accept this view as primary, we should think of the leaf as an expression of an underlying totality. In essence, Bohm's theory provides a holistic framework that attempts to reconcile some of the counterintuitive aspects of quantum mechanics with a more classical deterministic worldview, all while staying consistent with experimental observations. Bohm identifies fragmentation, our tendency to divide the world into separate, independent parts, as a fundamental problem in science and society. The problem of fragmentation starts with our general worldview. If we think of reality as being constituted of independent parts, such as we do under the current prevailing paradigm of materialism, then that is how our minds will tend to operate. Fragmentation, of course, also influences our conception of ourselves in relation to everything else. Bohm also questioned the way we use our language and whether there are any features which tend to sustain or propagate the fragmentation he sees as main culprit. In his book, Bohm introduced the concept of the Rio mode. The term Rio mode is derived from the Greek word Rio, meaning to flow, and reflects Bohm's interest in developing a language and conceptual framework that would better support the dynamic, fluid nature of the world. In conventional language, we often use nouns and static categories to describe reality, which Bohm argued can lead us to perceive the world as composed of separate, static, and unchanging objects. The Rio mode was Bohm's experimental attempt to create a linguistic structure that emphasizes processes and change rather than fixed entities. For instance, instead of using nouns like tree, the Rio mode would encourage descriptions that focus on the processual nature of existence, like treeing, thereby highlighting the continuous unfolding and becoming of everything in the universe. Bohm's work emphasized the interconnectedness of individuals with humanity, and he suggested a deeper, more universal connectivity that could extend beyond humanity. His dialogues and writings, especially those on thought and consciousness, explore the idea that individuals are not isolated entities but part of a greater whole. Bohm theorized that through deepening of our understanding and consciousness, individuals could contribute significantly to transforming mankind. He argued that when individuals are free from flawed perspectives that foster ignorance, and when they come together in close, trusting relationships, they can set free the force that is capable of elevating global consciousness. For Bohm, the collective consciousness of humanity had profound importance. In his mind, the collective consciousness is fundamentally unified and indivisible, and every individual can engage in nurturing this collective awareness. Bohm's ideas have inspired researchers in various fields, including quantum physics, consciousness studies, and holistic approaches. Beyond physics, Bohm was deeply interested in the nature of thought and consciousness. He explored the role of language and thought in shaping reality and proposed the use of dialogue as a way for individuals to explore their collective thoughts and prejudices openly, thus enhancing mutual understanding and possibly leading to a more coherent society. David Bohm's contributions span the concrete and the abstract, from tangible discoveries in physics to exploratory philosophical ideas. His work challenges us to think more deeply about the underlying connections within the universe and the way our understanding of reality shapes our experiences and societies. I personally benefited a lot from listening to David Bohm interviews and such, and I collected some interesting links that you can find in the description box below if you're interested in pursuing this further. That said, I hope this was insightful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.